Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you have a busy schedule coming to our show. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here, man. Look forward to it.
The pleasure is mine. And I know you've been juggling through businesses and everything. So obviously taking the time out coming to the show is not easy thing. I really appreciate it, like I mentioned. Yeah, so my audience will be most interested to know before we jump into who you are and everything. How do you get started with everything? Like you in a real estate business, your real estate coaching business. How do you get started? And before everything, who Anthony Pierce was and how everything got started?
Well, I mean, just like anyone, man, I had hopes, dreams, and aspirations. I always wanted to get into real estate ever since I was a young boy. Me and my father and family, when he bought his first house, we did a renovation project,
Yeah.
and that was like my first exposure to real estate. We took this house that was older and we fixed it up together, did the painting, changed everything, carpet. I mean, just like redid it, and it was just amazing. And then what was more amazing is the response that we got from other people. I thought
Mhm.
that was amazing because when family and friends would come over to the house, they'd be like, wow, you guys did this, is amazing. So from that day on, I was kind of hooked, but I really didn't know exactly how to actually enter into that business. Later on, after I finished high school, I ended up going on to college, and I played sports in college. I played football. I was on scholarship, and
Right.
and and went into the area of special education because I always been, wanting to be in that area of education. So I started there, and then eventually, before the end of my senior year, I switched over to sales management, and then kind of finished my career in college there. And then I went off into the world, man. And the way that I was able to find my way to real estate was I ended up getting into the banking and financing industry, and that was like my ticket into that world because I
Yeah.
figured to myself that if I could understand the money, then that would probably open up doors for me to be able to eventually invest in real estate myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So let's take it back. I want to hear your story from beginning. So who you used to be in a school life? Are you a good student or what you used to be like? Are you introvert, extrovert? How's it like?
Well, be honest with you, man. I was a okay. So I never was like no great student. I never really, saying got into high school like that or school in general ever since a kid. I later picked it up and kind of started to focus. But like when I was in like junior high school and middle
Mhm.
school, I just wasn't really interested in school. I was kind of one of those guys that was always getting in trouble, doing different things. And I think the turning point for me where the first pivotal point in my life when I actually thought about making some adjustments was when I remember I got in trouble with one of my really good well, we always call ourselves cousins and friends, and ironically later on in the story you'll see that we
Yeah.
kind of two both met back up. But what happened was is one time we had like I think skipped school or skipped class or did something, and we got caught, and the teacher was in there talking to him saying hey, you got a future, like Anthony don't have a future, he
Yeah.
doesn't have, I mean, he's gonna probably be in jail, he's gonna this and that. And I can hear her and I'm like, what is she talking about? How's she just gonna say I'm gonna fail and you don't know me, so
Yeah.
that really like stung me. So from that was when I was in like maybe the sixth grade or something like that. So from that point on, I did started to kind of focus. So like the rest of my sixth grade year, I was getting like D's and C's. The second
Mhm.
half of it, I got all straight A's because I was just trying to prove a point to this teacher. And I ain't gonna put her on blast, but I wanted to prove a point to her that you know what I could focus if I wanted to. And then I went on to to be like class president and, get good grades the rest of the way throughout junior high school. And then in high
Yeah.
school, I just got decent grades. I wasn't, necessarily any type of valedictorians or anything like that, but I did enough to get through high school once I got to that level. But I kind of pushed back a little bit. I didn't really push as much as I did when I was in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because I felt like I had something to prove to that teacher. When I kind of got to high school, it was just more so, as long as I got like a high C or a B average, I was cool with that. So with that being said, wasn't really, really wasn't that great of a student. You wouldn't somebody like that be like, oh, he was amazing in school. No, I wasn't really that. But when I got to college, that's when I really started to change my mindset, like, knowing that it was so many things that I found of interest when I was in college that made me really started to focus in the areas of, just sociology and areas of psychology and, philosophy and all these different things, religion.
Yeah.
All those things were just like, just colorful, music to me that made me really start to think and get into those things and just gain more insight and wisdom. So that was kind of starting the foundation of me really starting to focus on different things and gain understanding on different things. And then education, when I got into that field and earlier in my college career, just seeing the format of teaching and just the power of impacting individuals teaching. I remember teaching my first, class. I think I had like sixth and sixth graders, 5th and 6th graders. And I could see, me and a lot of those kids, and it was such a fun time because, I was just watching the progression. So, having the honor of teaching people is such a privilege, especially when you kind of can, hone in on and meet them where they at and be able to help them to be able to progress so that you actually see that they actually are getting it. It's no other feeling like that. So that was kind of like the beginning stages of me in the teaching side. And, but later I kind of realized that I didn't want to teach because I used to go, the thing that I didn't like about my practicums and stuff when I was in school and teaching is that I didn't like the lunchroom smell or the wet mop smell that was in school. And it was like when I first entered in school, that was the first thing I smelled. And I'm like, oh, I remember I hated this smell, so.
Yeah, you remember.
Yeah. That the smell I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I got that smell, like you could always smell the lunchroom, and it's like you always could smell like somebody been mopping. And I couldn't, I always hated that smell as a kid.
Yeah.
So being there every day was like, oh man, you know what? I don't think I could do this. And then I think what sealed it was when I actually had to actually sit with the teachers in the teachers lounge. And I really didn't like that either, simply because of my experience with the one teacher, because they were like talking about kids like, oh yeah, that kid, he's horrible, so I felt a certain type of way because I was that kid. And I can remember when that one teacher said that about me. So it kind of brought me into that world. And immediately I knew like, no, I'm not about to be in this type of environment for the rest of my life. So I instantly made the decision after I finished that semester. That was my last semester teaching as a special education teacher. And I just switched my major and did what I needed to do just to graduate. And then I went on and started pursuing what I really wanted to learn and understand, which was like get into investments, get into real estate and stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting. So after you getting your graduation, like you got straight into real estate, you started straight up.
No, actually I got into, like I said, once I got out of college, my first opportunity, I got into the banking and financing industry. That was like my first shot. That made sense to me in a sense that I figured that if I can understand how money work and get into the financing side and seeing how they put together loans and deals for other investors and other people buying homes, that would be a good way for me to maybe be able to figure out how I can get into the business. And that was like my first exposure. So what I did is I learned everything I could about the banking side of it. I actually end up working at a company called Ace Mortgage Company, and I ended up becoming within like 8 months becoming the vice president of that company. And and we built a nice little legacy together during that time, being one of the first minority-owned mortgage lenders in the tri-state in our area at that time. So that was one of my first achievements. And then in 2000, I think it was in 2001, I started Mactone Investments. And then that was like my first start of saying, okay, I'm about to try to start investing in real estate. The problem is I still didn't have a lot of cash flow. I didn't have a lot of money. So I had to figure out another way. So that's when I first, got my first mentoring and coaching, where I went to a program that kind of gave me the foundational stuff on the investment side, and then coupled with me understanding how the money worked, it just kind of meshed really well. And it was like, okay, I get it. And so I realized, some of the keys to actually being able to really enter into real estate investment. And one of the things that I realized immediately is that, you don't need a whole lot of money and stuff like that to invest in real estate, but you do have to be creative, and you have to be willing to put together creative deals, and one of the first lessons that I learned is that in the business of negotiation, negotiation is everything in real estate. So for example, if you were selling me your house, I will give you whatever you want for your house as long as you give me my terms. So if you want $1 million for your house, okay, that's fine, but I want you to do it under my terms. So that's usually one of the most powerful things is your terms. Anything can be bought, but the terms are really the most powerful component to it. Because, for example, if you were selling me your house for $1 million, let's say that my terms was, okay, I won't give you any money down, I want to be able to have these terms, have this opportunity and option for at least 5 years. And I'll take over the initial payment, and I'll only give you XYZ income on top of that per month. And then I'll eventually get you out of the deal in 5 years. So for you, you got what you wanted. You're getting $1 million for this house, but I got the necessary time that I needed, and I didn't have to come with 20% down on $1 million. So now I get to keep that cash flow and my money in my bank account instead of me actually giving you, $200,000, having to put $200,000 down to get your house for $1 million. You didn't get your money immediately, but you got exactly what you wanted for the house. Plus you're getting some income for the next 5 years. So that's also something that you can write off. So it becomes, an advantage to you as well. So I learned
win-win for both of them, isn't it? Both parties.
Yeah, exactly. So you create a win-win situation for both parties. So that's really one of the key lessons in real estate it's not about if you had money, it's about really negotiation and putting together win-win situations, and then finding the right type of like-minded people that can actually provide you with what you're looking for. And that's understanding your market, and that gets into other detail stuff. But that was one of my first lessons, and one of the things that I really understood and took. The other thing is that I learned when I first started off is the power of mentoring. And that was like my first thought of teaching, like, oh, this allowed me to be able to impact and change people's lives, because I realized that that's how you curve the learning, the curve. That's how you shorten it. By getting additional income, and getting additional help from mentors and coaches. And if I could have went back and did it differently, I probably would have got, instead of just having a couple of coaches early on, I would have had, as many as I could find, and all aspects of things that I enjoyed and that I wanted to do, or that I end up doing maybe eventually. I would have just went and got the people that I needed, whatever they wanted to pay for it. I would have did it, because when I look at going to college for all those 4 or 5 years, I didn't even finish in special education what I really set out to do. So I didn't even get a degree. And then when I got my degree in, I can use it for different things, but it really was just a degree, so to speak. It was just to get out of college. It wasn't really anything significant. So, you look at you spending an average of $20,000 or $30,000 every year for a college education. At the end, you're looking at maybe a potential of debt anywhere from over $100,000 to $150,000. Well, if you could take a small portion of that, maybe less than 10% of that, and then go into mentoring programs to learn the skill set of something that you want. So now you're taking $15,000, and it's going to teach you not only how to get that $15,000 back, but immediately you're going to be in the green instead of the red. It becomes like a win-win situation and a no-brainer. But a lot of people don't see it like that. They've still been trained, go to college.
They think it's an expense, isn't it? they think is an expense, and they know have the confidence on themselves. So thinking about I can do something better. Oh, it's working for him, but I can't do that. But this is a different route, like a go get degree, and there is a secure job is waiting for me. They think the job is waiting for them, but when you actually do in real life, then you realize getting in a job market is not easy as you think. Yeah.
Exactly, because most people never really go into the field that they get their degree in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you go into a job, you end up being hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Plus, if you take the amount of money that you lost for going for 4 or 5 years, let's say you could have made an extra $30,000, $40,000 a year, being home, if you would have just came right out of college out of high school and worked, that's 4 or 5 years of income loss. So you need to add that as well, because you lost all this time and you lost money. So therefore, you're really somewhere close in $300,000 to $400,000 when you come out behind the 8 ball, versus if you actually did get mentoring. And this is just what I realized, is that I may have spent $20,000 in mentorship in maybe over a year. Yeah. And I would have been on my way and probably would have gotten that money back, and then also be on my way profitable doing what I really want to do each and every day. So it's common sense, but the way that this system is programming us, and even families, you have family traditions and things. Well, the only way you make money is you're going to have to be a doctor, a lawyer. You have to do these things. Oh, yeah. No, you don't want to own your own business. You're gonna fail at owning your own business. That's horrible. That's the worst thing you can do. Just work for somebody and save your money, and just the traditional thing. So I realized quick that was really not the real ticket, and I needed to establish my own business and get out here and start making things happen on my own terms.
Yeah, it's great. Like you followed you're passionate about. You followed your heart, rather than getting through a society, family's noises, do this, do that. You just focused on what needs to be doing, and you're gonna enjoy doing it and love doing it. Yeah,
exactly,
people need to get into that. Yeah.
One of the greatest things about it is that once I actually got the tools that I needed, and then I was able to inject my own creativity with it. And that's really what business is about. There's a million ways to skin a cat, but the one who can come with the most creativity is usually going to be the one that wins in the end, because he understands that it's limitless in terms of what we can do. So there's no restrictions, as long as it falls within the rules, you know what I mean? You can do anything. And sometimes if you're really creative, the rules, you're able to take such advantage of those rules that usually they'll start trying to put rules in place to stop you, because they don't want you to do it. Like, he's just killing it. So we got to figure out a way, this is unbelievable what he's doing. And I've seen people who created businesses that have done that as well. So for me, real estate allowed me the opportunity to be creative. And, one of my first opportunities when I bought my first house, just to tell you the story, my first house didn't have any money. But one of the things that I did learn from my mentors, he told me, he says, look, any business that you go into, or if you're going to own a business or whatever profession or whatever it is, you have to become that immediately, even before you make money. So if you're a real estate investor, you need to become a real estate investor right now. So today you are a real estate investor. And the reason is that everybody needs to know who you are and what you are. So not because you have properties does that make you a real estate investor. It makes you a real estate investor the moment that you say you are a real estate investor. And I thought that was super powerful. It was you're right. So the first thing I did is I took that and I did exactly what he said do. I started telling everybody that I was a real estate investor. I went to all my family, my friends. Some of them laughed. Some of them says, whatever, man, you ain't never buy no properties. Someone was like, great, man. If I find something, I'll make sure you send. I said, definitely. I'm looking to buy. So if you find anything, send it to me. So once I started telling everybody that, the word got out, and, and it's like that law of attraction. What ended up happening is that my first deal came to me simply because of that fact.
How much money did you put in on your first deal? Sorry to interrupt. How much money did you put in on your first deal? And what
I
age
put
he was?
absolutely nothing. I had no money, so I put no money down, no anything. I didn't have any
Mhm.
money, so but I had creativity and I had
Yeah.
energy, and I also had sweat equity is another thing that everybody has. If you don't got money, but if you got energy and you can put time and effort and manage and take care of things, that comes with extreme value, and a lot of
Mhm.
people don't understand how valuable that really is. It's easy for somebody to slap money around and throw it up against the wall, like, oh yeah, take this money, whether they're gonna
Yeah.
lose it or not. It's hard to actually start a project and actually get it done and see it to the end. That's where the real work is. So once I started to realize that, I understood that the fact that I didn't have no money was no big deal. The
Yeah.
value was I willing to put in the work to make sure that I can actually render the results that I'm actually claiming. That's more powerful than any type of money. So what ended up happening is, because I understood contracts, I understood money, I understood these things. What happened was, is a gentleman that I actually got into an altercation with briefly in the mortgage industry. He was a
Yeah.
realtor. And just a brief story, this guy named Rob, he was a realtor, really good at what he did. Our company was at that time a newer company. We only been
Yeah.
around for maybe a couple of years, so he wasn't really familiar with it. We wasn't like the big wigs. So when he had to deal with us, he would harass us and be like, "Is this deal going to close on time?" And this is that. And one day
Mhm.
he got the ramping and ended up really cussing me out, about this deal, because I wouldn't answer his question in terms of telling him that it definitely was going to close on that date. I kept saying, "Look, we ain't giving any guarantees, but everything is on track. But I'm not going to say it's definitely going to close. Hopefully we can close sooner, but I'm not going to say, yes, it's going to close. I'm not going to give you that, because anything can happen." And he
Yeah.
didn't want to hear that. So he went off on me, and eventually, I ended up having at that time I had become, the vice president of the company. He didn't know I had an ownership in the company. And he's like, "I want to talk to the owner." And I'm like, "Look, you are talking to the owner." And eventually got off the phone with him, and that was that. But we had this spat. So
Yeah.
his loan ended up closing way before time. The seller, was super happy. My buyers were super happy. He was at the closing. I wasn't even there yet. I was on my way there. The closing agents was there, and they were all like ramping about, the way that I did business. And they was telling him, like, Anthony's always at his closings, his clients, he takes care of them. He does all these things. And Rob was hearing it. So by the time I got there, I end up, helping getting things that they needed, making sure that they was okay. And we closed it. At the end, he comes to me, he says, "Look, I was just amazed at how professional your company is, how well you guys did an amazing job. I know I got on you hard in the beginning." He says, "But I want to apologize to you,
Mhm.
man, because that was wrong. And man, you guys got an amazing company, and I'm definitely going to be referring people to you guys." So I thought that was great. Well,
Yeah.
he ended up being the person that brought me my first deal. And
Wow.
he called me maybe like 6 months, because I had told him too that, yeah, I'm a real estate investor and I'm looking for houses. So if you ever find anything, man, that's nice, bring it to me. Now, I didn't have any money, I just was inspiring, and I was just letting people know. And he ended up calling me maybe 6 months later and saying, "Hey, Anthony, you still looking to buy something?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." He says, "Well, I got a couple of deals for you." And one of the deals was a house by a famous baseball player here locally in Cincinnati. His
Right.
name is Jose Rio. He was a famous pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. It was his house. He was over in Dominican Republic or wherever he's from. And his house had mold damage because of moisture and the way that they
Yeah.
built it. So it kind of filled throughout the house, and he was just trying to get rid of it. And so that was one opportunity. The other opportunity was a 10-unit building. And this house was ran down by a guy. He was a GE executive and had made a lot of money in the stock market. And he was just a slumlord and let this house just run down. And now he was just ready to either auction it off or just get rid of it, because he had it for like over 20 something plus years.
Yeah.
So I had these two options. So I ended up picking the latter, which was the 10 unit, because I saw the opportunity for passive income. And I thought that, maybe that would be a good opportunity for me. Now, it was a crazy opportunity because I had never bought anything, and who would go from your first house being a 10-unit building? But
Yeah.
when you don't know nothing, it doesn't even
Mhm.
matter. There's really no fear. Would I advise somebody else, your first project be a 10-unit building and every room or every apartment has to be renovated? No, I probably wouldn't say start there. But for me, I was ignorant, didn't know. So that's what I did. So the long story short, we got he came to me and says, hey, this guy, he said, let me tell you a little bit about this guy. He says, I think this guy might even be willing to do some creative financing because he don't want to put it on auction. We haven't been getting anybody really interested in it. And I think he's probably going to be putting it on auction if we can't find anybody in a couple of weeks for about $10,000 to $20,000 just to get rid of it. And I was like, okay, well, great. Well, let me go look at it and let me see if I can put together something. So I went and met the guy. He was a great guy. Walked through the house, knew nothing, was taking notes all throughout the house. The house was tore up, and I didn't even know what galvanized pipe was. I didn't know none of that stuff. I was just taking notes. And by the time I had a whole notebook of notes of him talking to me, what was going on with this place, took pictures, measurements, all that good stuff. And then, I left and I told him, I says, well, look, I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to get with my team and then I'm going to see what we can put together and I'll get back to you. Now, at that time, I didn't have a team. I didn't have anybody. I just told him, get with my team and I'll get back with you. So who became my team was Home Depot. I ended up going to Home Depot for like 2 days and stayed there and went through and met every person in every department and went through everything in terms of what I needed so I can figure out how much it would cost me to fix this house up. And I did that after a contractor that I took in the house told me that it was going to cost like $200,000. I was like, man, that's more than a house is worth. So fixed up. So I was like, it couldn't cost that much. So I had to go do the work, man. And I did. I found out, I put all the numbers together. I ended up figuring out that I could probably do that house for like $50,000, right. And which was way different than $200,000. So what I did is I put together a contract with him. And this goes back to what I told you earlier about, I'll give you what you want as long as you give me my terms. Yep. So this is an example of that. So I went back to him. I says, look, I like the house, but here's what I can do. I'll give you $40,000 for the house. Now I knew he only was willing to take $20,000 for it. So I said, look, I'll give you $40,000 for the house. But also I want you to give me $50,000 to fix the house up. Plus I want you to give me an actual emergency fund of additional $5,000. So that's $50,000. I said, I want $50,000 plus if I got to come back, something unforeseen, I at least want about $5,000 as the reserves or emergency fund. And then I also said, I want you to give me 3 years under a land contract. And I says, but you will not receive a payment for 12 months. So and then you also hold all the insurance and stuff like that. And the only thing that I would pay for is the gas and electric and things that I need as I go through the process of renovating. But you'll hold the insurance. You won't get a payment for a year. You'll hold it for 3 years under a land contract. And also you'll give me $55,000 to renovate this house, your own funds. Now, you may say, well, that sounds insane. Why would he do that? Well, here's what I learned over 20 some plus years ago is that people with money need somewhere to invest their money, and they understand the power of compound interest. They understand that their money has no value sitting in the bank account. So if I could sweat equity, make him 12% is what I was going to give him on his money, it's a win-win for him, because he had the money. He had the money. He just didn't have the time to sit there and do it. And he needed somebody who he could trust that was actually going to really try to get it done. And then 2, it was no risk to him because he was only going to take $20,000 for the house. So now not only was he going to get $40,000, double than what he wanted, but he also was going to get interest on the other $55,000 that he was going to give me too. So he was going to make interest on the 40 plus the 55,000. So he get his money back and he gets this interest on it. So now he's growing his wealth. So I understood that. And that's one of the first lessons that I always try to teach my students is that you have to understand the money. And that was the biggest, advantage that I had is because I was in the banking industry and I understood the money and I would see these people bank statements and understood these investors and what they were doing. And I would always talk to them about, what they were doing, what strategies and stuff that they were using. So I put this deal together and I sent it to him through Rob, and I didn't know if he was going to accept it or not. And he accepted all my terms. And I was like shocked. And I ended up getting my biggest check ever, which was like $15,000 he gave me to start the project. And at that time, coming out of college, I had not seen probably more than a couple of grand at a time. You know what I mean? So it was like $50,000. I'm looking at this check like, This is $15,000. Like, so I end up, putting a check in my account, and I started the project, man. I end up getting the house fixed up within 6 months. I end up using part of the $50,000. I end up getting the house done for $32,000. I end up
Right.
taking $10,000 of that $50,000 or so, 10 to 12,000, and I end up purchasing another house, a 4-unit building, on a lease option, and I didn't have to put any money down. It was an actual another mentor of mine. She didn't like multi-units. She only liked single families, but she
Yeah.
ended up with one and she wanted to get rid of it. So she gave that to me with no money down. And all I had to do was fix up a unit. The other 3 units was rented out. She went in half with me, $800 a piece. We paid
Yeah.
$1,600. We got the unit rented out, and then I had that whole building. And she allowed me to take over her payment. I didn't have to pay. She didn't want any income on it. She just says, as long as you pay what I pay every month, you can have this house, Anthony. So I took the house. Along with that, I ended up fixing up the house by taking an extra 10 grand from over at this house,
Yeah.
painted the house, redid the stairs, made it look nice. And then on both houses, within a year, I went and refinanced them. And on both houses, I ended up paying everyone back off. And I ended up getting $55,000 on one of the houses and another $49,000 out of the other house in equity. So in less than a year of me starting my real estate investment, I ended up pulling more than $100,000 of cash flow, of cash, actual hard cash. And then I took that cash and I ended up purchasing 17 houses in 6 months. And built a portfolio over 2.5 million, and end up, putting cash in our pockets of over like $420,000 based off of the creative way that we were purchasing those houses at that time. So that was like my first big success. When I was in my mid 20s, I'm like, thinking like, man, this is ridiculous. Like I'm the man. So that was a great time, and we did extremely well in terms of what we were doing on the real estate scene. And we were also investing in the stock market at that time as well. So things were great for a while until really 9/11 hit. And then things kind of got rough on the investment side, but the real estate side had always been good to us.
Yeah, that's a great story. Like coming from like the background of yours and building that kind of portfolio of 2.5 million. It's a great achievement for like in your 20s. And I know you talked about like when we had a chat earlier last week, uh, point of your life, you had like a low moment where you have end up being in a prison. So tell us about like how that happened and like what get into them kind of like being in a prison for like 6 years.
Yeah. That's the other thing. So now, with that, I had all that great success, did extremely well. Things were great. Started being, known in my community, of course, as an investor, started helping a lot of different people, I helped a lot of people start their businesses, got a lot of people in the industry and business. And that was really the beginning of my starting to teach and coach and just inspire and uplift. So I was a big component of helping people and really just trying to help people get out of their situations and poverty. And now this kind of brings me full circle with the same individual that when we were kids, and got in that trouble when that teacher told us, that he had this bright future and I didn't, now it was full circles and he was kind of, doing things illegally, selling drugs in that world. And we were still good friends and whatever. So at any cost, I would try to help him. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made is that I end up, helping him and help him get a few houses, help, do a few different things. And then the biggest mistake is I made is that I end up doing a favor for him by going and picking up some work that he had because I was going to be in that area. And I was like, you know what? All right, I'll pick it up. I'll bring it back because I had, a building and I had a property in Chicago. And I guess that's where he was, doing his little business about it there. And I ended up getting stopped on my way back, so at that particular time, I had a successful business.
Did you know that point of time, like when your friends giving you the stuff, do you know there is some drugs or whatever in there? Did you know, or you had no clue?
Oh no, I knew exactly. I was very aware of what was going on. I knew what was happening. I agreed to it, but the sad thing about it is that for a week when he was asking me to do it, I told him no. I was like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm good. And the only thing that broke me down was really my first real lesson that made me do it is that he owed me some money
Right.
and for a couple of houses. So, he was just, saying, hey, if you do this, I'm saying, I'll be able to, do this, and then I'll be able to give you this. And after, not taking his calls for almost a week or whatever, and just saying,
Mhm.
look, man, I'm not going to do it. He finally begged me like, man, we family, man, come just talk to me for a minute, man, and just hear me out. So
Yeah.
when I heard him out, he kind of promised me what was going to happen and what was he going to do and how he was going to take care of this stuff and do all this different stuff. So for me at that time, I'm thinking like, yeah, I can use that extra 30 grand and, I can do this, that'd be great. So let's do this, so I said, all right, when I'll go ahead and take care of that for you.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I end up doing it. I end up, getting caught on my way back, not in while I was in the Chicago area, but actually when I started to come back up to Ohio. And that was partly because he didn't know at that time that he was being under investigation, that they were having wiretaps and all these different things that I didn't know either. So
Yeah.
I end up getting jammed into this mess. And of course, in your mind, you think like this can't happen. Some kind of way I'm gonna be able to get out of this,
Mhm.
but they started turning it into, because I was a successful investor. So they started saying maybe I was the money launderer, maybe I was the one that was cleaning up their drug money. And I just ended up getting caught up in this whole world. And they just came at me and started attacking me in every which way.
Yeah.
So I just kind of got caught up in the whirlwind, man. And eventually, I was looking at like 22 years because of the amount of contraband that they have found. And I end up taking a plea deal, man, of like 6 years. And it was just as bad as I didn't want. I'd never been in trouble, never
Yeah.
had a juvenile record, never had anything. So now this is another pivotal point in my life because it was so many lessons that I had to learn from this, which
Mhm.
actually puts me where I am today. But it was a difficult time at that time. I had 4 kids. My youngest daughter was 2. My oldest son was 10 and my youngest son was 8 and my oldest daughter was 16. So
Wow.
4 kids, man. I was the type of dad that I was always in their lives. I've been an entrepreneur really since I came out of college. So,
Yeah.
I was the dad that was always at the recitals. I was always at the events. I went to all the field trips. I was just to be only male, and I really took pride in that, man. I love that because my kids was always excited to the point where they called me when they would have trips like, Dad, you going to our field trip, this
Yeah.
week, or we're going here. And I'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely. So that was a pleasure, man. And so to do this, it was just like I was at a point in my life, man, where I just felt like a total failure. I felt like I destroyed the foundation of everything that I had built at that time.
How old are
And we were
you
doing,
that time?
I'm
How old
sorry.
are you? How old are you that time when you got
At this
caught?
time, I was 30. At this time, I was actually 36.
Right.
So I had been investing in real estate for over 10 years at that point in time. So yeah, at this time, I was like 36 years old, man. And that was the sad part about it, because you would think that, you get in your mid 30s or whatever, you'd be mature enough to make better decisions so you don't put yourself in that predicament. But what I had to do just for my own mental health and for me to change my perspective and how I looked, I had to really look at
Yeah.
what put me in that predicament. Why was you even in that predicament? I mean, you didn't never even have to associate with none of that. What was making you even be around that? And one of the things that I realized as I kind of dabbed back in my life, and you had so much time to really reflect. And what I really realized is that I was just merely a product of my environment, man. I grew up and seen a lot of things that you never should see.
Yeah.
I've been around people that I probably should never have been around. I never seen them as threats. I never seen it as, oh, this, it was just our lives. These were friends and families. And yeah, they were doing different things. And it was different for me. I ended up having the privilege to go to college and do these things. They end up going in a different world. But in your mind, you still see them as family. You still love them. And you still want to be there to help them,
Yeah.
but at some point in time, there is a moral, line that has to be drawn. And sometimes that line can be blurred when you have what I like to call bad associations, because one of my first biblical principles that I love, which is 1 Corinthians 15:33, which says bad association spoils useful habits. That was one of my favorite scriptures that touched me, because I was a product of bad associations. Those bad associations spoiled everything good that I had worked up and built to that time. So that was the pivotal point. So I was angry at anybody? No. Was I mad? Did I blame anybody? No. I took responsibility for my own actions. And that was one of the first, I think, steps to growing as a man, because sometimes we tend to blame everyone when things are not going right in our lives. But I end up just taking responsibility and just realizing that what the problem was, and that I really needed to moving forward, that I needed to live my life differently and in a more, more moral and more spiritual, way. And I needed to build a greater foundation that was more solid, so that way I wouldn't even think of doing something like that. I wouldn't even allow the lure of money or anything to make me give up, what I value most, which you realize that when you're sitting in prison, which is really your family and peace. It's not about money. It's not about anything. It's just like peace. I mean, everybody really wants peace. And that was one of the things that I realized when I was in prison, when I actually ended up started teaching real estate in prison. And I had the privilege of teaching my bunkie, who was so animate about learning how to invest in real estate. So when I started teaching him, he asked, a lot of questions, and, it's like, man, I really want to do this. So I says, okay, I would definitely teach you. So what I end up doing is I end up saying, look, I'll teach you, but here's the terms. Because again, I'm always about terms. Here's the terms for me teaching you. I said, if I teach you, what I want you to do is I want you to take notes, and then I want you to take those notes, and I want you to put those, I want you to actually provide those notes, take them to because he worked at at that time, he worked at the auto school, which he was allowed to go outside the prison. And in the auto school, they had computers. So I says, I want you to take notes, and then I want you to type everything up, so that once I teach you, I don't have to do this anymore. If it's somebody else that want to learn, we'll just have the notes, and we can maybe print copies, and, and it'll all be set up. And he was like, absolutely. He's like, when do we start? So we started that following Sunday, and every Sunday for 8 months, I taught him for an hour, him and one other gentleman. And they both, both loved it, both eventually getting out of prison and flourishing with the information that they provided. But it started a wildfire, because it went.
So you was in the prison that time, right?
Yeah, I was in the prison. Yeah, I was in a prison. So I was teaching them like in the prison cells. I was teaching them like out on the yard, on benches, anywhere that I could actually sit and teach. And then eventually one of the inmates was like, hey, man, I want you to go and meet with the principal. And go talk with the principal and see if you can get some space in the high school so that you can just teach in a class setting. He said, because there's so many people wanting it, because it was getting so bad. It was so many people that was just out there trying to learn, that I was like, okay, I need to maybe, because I started having the COs like, what are you guys doing over here? Because there was so many of them just all piled up, just trying to get information. And in prison, they don't really like you to be in groups of more than 5, because they always think it's going to be some type of gang thing. But it was like, groups of 8 or 9, and they're like, what is going on over there? So the news was getting on the yard of what was going on and what I was teaching. So of course, by the time I got to the principal told me, she says, look, I don't have room here. She said, but I'm gonna introduce you to the director of Urbana University, which was the college that was coming in and teaching inmates, different topics and helping them get their associate's degrees and so on and so forth. So I met with the director, went over the program. She loved the program, and she ended up helping me setting me up so that I could teach the program in the college area, and also made it a certification program that they will get certification at the end of 16 weeks. So I created a 16-week program. The program was called 4 Phases to Becoming a Successful Real Estate Investor. And the crazy thing about it is that in the college setting, the average amount of students in the class was anywhere between 10 to 15 on a great day. my average students were like 35, and I only was supposed to have 20. And I had to convince her to add 15 chairs to my class so that we can get more inmates in. So now I started teaching it twice a semester. So that was a total of enrollments of about 70 students that I was teaching each semester. And it just blew up, man, into this amazing thing. And right now it's one of the most successful real estate investment programs in the prison system that most people have never even heard of. And it's just turning out tons of students, and it's still being taught there, even though I've been out of prison now almost 7 years.
Yeah.
Because I came home in 2015, and but it's still doing extremely well. As a matter of fact, I'll be working with the DRC here in the coming weeks and months to go back because they want me to kind of go back in there and do some different things for people that are coming out of the prison, some different programming and stuff. So that's a blessing in itself. So the moral of it is this: is that, you know, I realized that when I was in prison is that, although in the beginning I thought maybe that, you know, I was a failure and that my life, you know what I'm saying, you know, was just worthless, and that I let all these people down. But eventually I realized this fact is that really in reality, there is no such thing as failure. And that's what really sparked the book, The Boundless Success, and in my section in there about that topic that says there is no such thing as failure, because I realized that as long as you keep pushing forward, it's impossible for you to fail. Now you may have some trials, some tribulations, you may have some hurdles and some mountains that you have to climb, but that's just work. That doesn't mean that you failed. You just got to put in additional work. You got to maybe change your mindset. So from a mental health standpoint, I changed the way that I was thinking, and I started to look at it that, no, I'm not a failure. As a matter of fact, this is just a page in my book of life. And I'm going to turn this page and move on with my life and utilize this as a stepping stone. So that's what made me start helping people, not only just teaching them real estate, but also started teaching people spiritually. I became an ordained minister. I started preaching and teaching and helping people learn, you know, that spiritual and that moral value that'll help you to be able to make better conscious decisions, and also have that moral compass in the back of your mind that's alerting you and letting you know that, no, this is wrong. And I think I noticed that because after all those years, I realized that a lot of those kids that was coming in and people was coming in prison, they weren't bad people. They suffer from what I suffer from, bad association. You just in an environment, you just take it for granted. You don't realize that, you know, you probably should leave this party. You probably shouldn't even have went. You probably shouldn't even be here right now, because this is really not what you want to be a part of. So I realized that a lot of them just got caught up in situations, man. So I wanted to teach them from a moral standpoint in order to change the way that they were thinking, so that when they got back out, not only would they use this 24-month rule that I taught them in real estate in order to be successful, but also that they would stop associating with the guys and people and all that type of stuff. And they would have no need to, because they will realize that if somebody want to do what you're doing, they'll find you. If they're ready to change their life, you don't have to go there. They'll come to you. You just make yourself available, but you don't ever want to be in a situation where you associate with them. So if anything, you want to provide programming and other things that they can actually take advantage of, versus actually you going in and trying to directly be in an environment that you know is bad, trying to teach someone. No, you have to bring them to your level and into your world so that you can show them something different, and that they can see what success looks like, versus actually you trying to meet them there or trying to beg them or plead with them to change what they're doing. And then eventually you get yourself jammed up in some things that you should have never even been involved in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the fact, like, instead of you victim of the prison, you make the most out of it in a positive manner. You chose to let all of your victimization go away and focus on what I can do differently now. Whatever happened in the past, I learned from a mistake. Now move forward, what I can do differently. So how the mindset came through? Like, what was your mindset like during the time?
Well, my mindset, man, what happened is I had to first and foremost take responsibility. That was the first thing. Because what I find out is when you get into trouble, especially in prison, you tend to look at everybody else. Was there things messed up about my case? Did the police and them stop me illegally? Did they break and violate some of my rights and laws? Absolutely. They did all those things. However, in order for me to move forward with my life, I had to actually take responsibility for my actions and says, I should have never been in that predicament. I should have never even been able to be put so that they can even do that to me. You know what I mean? So I should have never experienced it if I was right. So I had to get myself right. You know, one of my one song that I really love, which is by an artist here in the US, Lauryn Hill. And in one of her songs, she says, how you gonna win when you ain't right within? You know, so how you gonna win when you're not right within? So I had to realize that I had to get myself right within. It wasn't about anybody else. So I had to really self-evaluate myself. So for anybody out there, and that goes not just from you being in trouble, that goes from wherever stage you are in your life, whether you're dealing with battling with issues, family, mental health, whatever it is. It help anything, whatever you're dealing with, man, your business is failing right now. At some point in time, you have to just sit back and take responsibility. The moment you take responsibility and say, it's my fault, is the moment that you're going to actually move forward. But if it's anybody else's fault, then that means you're fooling yourself. And you actually are putting chains around your ankles and your hands and everything, preventing yourself from being able to break through and really be able to have the success that you deserve. So that's what I realized. So I had to change my mindset, man, because I couldn't live in that world. I had to create a whole new world for myself. And I had to make people come on my terms. And I'll give you an example of that, is that first and foremost, I stopped cursing. That was one of the first things that I stopped doing. I started using, words to express myself instead of being frustrated and using cuss words in order to express myself. I started realizing the value of words and being able to express yourself. And then also being able to mean what you say. Let your no mean no and your yes mean yes. Because I realized that, from a biblical standpoint in the Bible, is that he never once cussed at us. God has never said a cuss word to us. He just tells us exactly what we need to do and why we need to do it. And then he tells us exactly what would probably happen if we don't do it. So I started adapting that philosophy in terms of how I live my life, and then also how I deal with my kids and everything. I'm not cussing you out. I'm not about to yell and call you out your name and try to degrade you, make you feel less or say you this. No, I'm going to upbuild you, encourage you. I'm going to advise you, and I'm going to give you the best possible advice possible. And you're going to have a choice. And then I'm going to let you make that choice. And whether you make the right choice or not is your choice. However, you're going to, reap either the benefits or you're going to reap, whatever the woes that might come with that decision. However, they will know that I was always in their best interest. And that's the most important thing, because we realize that if you read the Bible, God he tells us exactly what we should be doing, how we should be living our lives. We have to deal with ourselves. So if we ignore it, then we just got to deal with the consequences of our actions. So that was the thing that was powerful for me, not for everyone, and not to, sound all religious, which, but I am very spiritual, but just for people to understand that, you have to take responsibility at some point.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate sharing the knowledge, your experiences, Anthony. It's a great, it's a different story, we don't hear that kind of story from a lot of entrepreneurs or not person going through jail and from being success to hitting a rock bottom, then going back again. It's not easy process. Yeah, we are running out of the time. So if anyone wants to work with you, if anyone wants to start real estate investing, how are they going to reach out to you? Do you have any website, social media, how they can reach out?
Oh, absolutely. One of the best ways to get in contact with me is through Linktree. You can go to my Linktree. You can go to Linktree, which is Linktree, linktr.ee/APIERRE 1002. So again, that's Linktree, Pierre 1002. And you can get in contact me there. That's one of the best ways, because there not only can you, if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can purchase the book there. If you're interested in, I have some free stuff there. I have a free webinar on 5 simple steps you can take to make it more than 50,000 or more on all your real estate flips. I give a lot of information in that. You also can join my Facebook group if you're interested in really learning about real estate and really just gaining wisdom and insight. Matter of fact, I got, I do a lot of free webinars in that group for them on topics that they choose. So you're able to actually take advantage of that. And then also I do coaching and mentoring. So you can get free consulting. I give you free 45 minutes. You can contact me and we can sit down and put together a plan for you no matter where you are in the world. And then we also provide a 8-week course that teaches you, how to, go from zero to hero in 8 weeks. So that way you can get out here and really do some special things in the real estate game. And again, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Real estate is universal. We'll teach you how to actually really get in and become what I like to call that real estate insider in your area. So that way you can take advantage of whatever opportunities that may be available there. So that's one of the ways. And again, you can always go on Facebook and all those different things and put my name in, Anthony Pierre. But if you go to Linktree, it's got my Instagram, it's got my Facebook, it's got everything on there right for you, and you can just go there and just click. So I'm sure you'll probably put that link up for everyone so they can go there. Makes it nice and simple, and you can get in contact with me. And if you guys got any questions about anything, definitely feel free to reach out. We'd love to help you in any way we can, and we'll just appreciate you invite me on the show, man. Awesome show. Love what you're doing, man. Love the topics. It shows that you got a lot of love for your audience, man. I can see it just by some of the shows that I've watched in terms of what you're providing for them, man. So keep up the good work, man. This is awesome.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Yeah, we're trying our best to encourage people get out of their comfort zone, whatever happened in the past, keep moving forward and inspiring them with the stories like yourself, myself, we have like a tremendous amount of guests coming onto the show. And everyone's story is unique, so anyone can relate to your story with someone else and they can move forward and learn from it. That's the whole goal and purpose. And I really appreciate you taking the time out with your busy schedule and coming to your show and sharing your knowledge, experiences. We really, really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap this now. So thank you guys. It's a wrap. So we're going to talk to you in the next episode. So stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.